Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
Hello, I'm Dale Leftwich with Real Agriculture. Today I'm with Tyler Wist, who is a research scientist with Agriculture Canada. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing well too, yeah. So we're here in a growth chamber, and Tyler, you do a lot of work with wheat midge. I guess one of the things you need if you're going to check out the resistance of varieties to something like wheat midge is to actually have wheat midge. I guess that presents a bit of a problem sometimes.
It does present a bit of a problem sometimes, but you know what? We're trying to compensate by growing them inside. So we bring them in from the field, overwinter them in a cold room, and when we need them, we bring them out and just pretend there's wheat in here and put the wheat in, and we can put the wheat midge in, let them emerge, and let them do their thing with the wheat head. So we can look for susceptibility and resistance to wheat midge that way. So we can look for other traits. So we've got a small Saskatoon colony here at the Saskatoon Research Center, and in Winnipeg we've actually got a colony as well, much bigger colony, and it's been going on for a lot longer. So a lot of the testing has been done in Winnipeg. Out in the field, I grow susceptible wheat to try to get my wheat midge populations up. I call that my wheat midge nursery.
So one of the things about wheat midge is that when you don't want them, they're everywhere, and when you do want them, they're nowhere. So you were just talking a little bit earlier about how in the field you actually need to get a certain amount of rain in the spring, for instance, before they'll even emerge. You want to just talk about the difficulty of trying to get all those conditions inside of a lab?
Sure. So out in the field, you need 25 millimeters of rain. So we determined that. Last 30 years of research here, obviously I wasn't doing it 30 years ago, but we've had scientists like Bob Elliott who determined that we need 25 millimeters of rain to actually kickstart the life cycle of the wheat midge. So they overwinter in the ground, and they don't start to pupate and turn into adults unless they get that moisture. And so when they're in the field and they're moving up into the canopy, they need high humidity as well. So that's why they like dawn and dusk. The humidity is high, the wind is low, and they can fly around and get to your wheat heads.
So you actually have to mimic those things, right? You actually have to mimic the amount of moisture. You actually have to freeze them in the winter, and then you actually have to mimic dawn and dusk inside of this chamber.
We sure do. And so what we've got here are some fluorescent bulbs, and we can control them with an app on your smartphone. And so we can have them dim naturally. And so if the wheat midge don't get this dusk and dawn, they won't lay eggs. And so we have to duplicate that with light bulbs. And so in the growth cabinet, we've got these, and we've also got lights around us that kind of come on and come off in sequence. So things get a little bit darker, and we can have them going here. Winnipeg, they've got dimmable lights in their whole growth cabinet, so they've got a really good setup there.
So when you're with there is a gene, an SM1 gene that's in some varieties now, and can you tell me just a little bit about how that gene works in a wheat plant to stop wheat midge?
Sure. So they found resistance about 12 years ago, I think it was, and what was happening was they were just getting dead first instar wheat midge larvae. So what they found was that the SM1 gene, if it was in the plant, was causing the levels of acid in the seed to rise really quickly as soon as a wheat midge larva started feeding on that seed. And the wheat midge larva doesn't like the taste, stops feeding, and starves. So on an SM1 head, you get dead first instar larvae. And so that's one of the keys that we use to figure out if a plant has SM1. Kurt McCartney, he's running the Winnipeg Center. He's a wheat geneticist with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. And he has been running the colony, but what he's also got are some traits going on. But he's also developed a marker gene for SM1, and we're going to work on a marker gene for this other trait that we might have that could be SM2.
So that's, I guess, what I want to talk about next is that you're trying to find other types of resistance. So you want to talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you're looking into to hope to get resistance in other methods?
Yeah, so Western Grains funds 2 technician positions with me, and what we do is we look at all of the variety trials and we look at lines that are in development and basically rip apart wheat heads and look to see whether they're susceptible or resistant, or if there are new traits that we might have in there that's not SM1 that we can also breed into wheat. And so those guys are working hard right now to get through the data so we can get it done by December and get the stuff out. And so other traits that might be in the pipeline, we're looking with Robert Graff. He's a winter wheat breeder with AAFC, and he's got a really hairy variety. So does Pierre Huckel at the CDC, and so hopefully we're going to look at that as a mechanical deterrent to the wheat midge. Also, Kurt McCartney has developed or has found a wheat line where the eggs get laid on the heads, but the eggs never develop. So what that means is you've got wheat midge eggs, but you don't have any wheat midge larvae, so you don't get that feeding on the seed, so your seed's not going to get damaged and not going to cause any kind of grade losses. So for SM1 to work, they have to feed, and you have to take a little bit of damage to the seeds. With this trait, we're hoping that that's not the case. No damage to the seeds.
So that would be excellent if we can get to that point. At this point, we only have the one gene. You just want to talk a little bit about how important it is to protect that gene by making sure that you're planting the correct varieties and having the susceptible varieties actually inside of that seed that you're buying?
Mm-hmm. So the SM1 varieties, they'll say VB at the end of their name. So, for example, the VB stands for varietal blend. So if you see that on a bag, what you've got is 90% SM1 wheat and 10% susceptible wheat. And so the different wheat lines have different wheat susceptibles that they put into there. But after a year of growing that susceptible wheat under high wheat midge pressure is going to have a lot more yield loss. So in year 2, you're going to have, say, maybe 95.5, which is still okay. But by the time you get to year 3, the susceptible plants are just not there anymore. So if you're growing midge-tolerant wheat with the SM1 gene, we have to really steward the gene so that we don't lose it. So projections say that we would lose the SM1 gene within about 10 years if we didn't steward it properly, and we can extend that to 90 to 100 years with proper stewardship. So what the susceptible variety does is it ensures that we get wheat midge adults that come off of the wheat that can mate with any wheat midge adults that might have developed tolerance to the SM1 or become resistant to the SM1, so they can breed that out of the population as a whole.
Okay, that's excellent. Well, thank you very much for showing us around your lab here today, Tyler.
You're welcome.
And best of luck in your growing the wheat midge colony.
Excellent.
Thanks again.
Thank you.